Welcome, Lorene and Lori. So grateful to have you here to talk about the legacy of Don MacLeod as he gets inducted into the Oregon Music Hall of Fame.
Thank you.
In industry, he created something that was just celebrating its 50th anniversary earlier this spring.
That's true.
It was the Ides of March, March 15th of 1969, when Don MacLeod and you, Lorene, and brother-in-law, Dan Lissy, first opened up this 800-square-foot record store on the corner of 32nd and East Burnside, and it specialized mainly in mostly underground music. That's what was going on at the time, 69.
Well, actually, we weren't on the corner. We were in the small building that is now the classical store. That's where we actually
opened. Oh, that's where you opened
Mm-hmm.
it. Okay. And at that time, you found records, like that, not in department stores, drugstores. Maybe there were a couple of record stores, but which existed at the time. But Music Millenium filled a niche for the Portland music community. What brought you and Don, Lorene, to even think, let's open up a record store? Isn't that a crazy idea?
Well, it was a rainy afternoon, and Don and I went to visit my brother Dan and his wife Patty, and we were just sitting there, and it was like, wouldn't it be fun to start a record store? Long Hair Music Faucet had started downtown, so we started talking about it, and we thought, well, we'll go on the east side. There's nobody there. But we didn't have any money, so we tried borrowing money from family and friends, and nobody would do that.
They thought it was a crazy idea.
Oh, they did. And so then Don had some retirement from Tektronix, and he went to them and he talked to them and said he wanted to do this, and they gave us his retirement, which was less than $5,000. And that's what we started with.
Well, you took the plunge.
We did.
And now, 50 years later, it's still going strong. Terry Courier says that Music Millennium became kind of this little community center back then. The first underground record store, because at the time, as we talked, people bought records in drugstores and department stores.
Right.
That's where you went to buy records. I can't think when I ever did that, but I guess I must have.
There was a record store, 6th Avenue Records, in downtown Portland, and you could go in there and you could take records in there and listen to them in the listening room, and that was about it. Actually, there was a couple of record stores over in North Portland too, but they were little known.
So what was your objective for Music Millennium?
We always, both of us, loved music, and we just thought it'd be fun to have a record store. Don was already working, so he wasn't going to be able to run it, but my brother ran it.
Dan.
Dan, mm-hmm. And we were closed on Sundays in the beginning.
Why?
I don't remember why. I've been looking back at some of my notes and thinking, gosh, I wonder why we did that. But so we opened on the Ides of March at 3 o'clock in the afternoon because it was best time astrologically. And I have to tell you that the name that my brother wanted for the record store was Tapeworm Vibration Center and Fire Brigade.
That's a mouthful.
And so it became Music Millennium, thank goodness.
How did that name come up?
It was one that Don came up with. And I don't remember exactly why. So it was his idea.
Well, 50 years later, it's the place, nationally and internationally. You founded the store because you couldn't find places to buy certain kinds of records, and you mentioned that Don left his Tektronix job and then started heading up Music Millennium full-time.
Well, he did later on. Actually, my brother left to go down to San Francisco, and we bought him out. And when he came back, he came to work for us again because he still wanted to be involved. But by that time, Don had quit his job, and we took a big leap, and he started getting involved. And we struggled for a while.
And so what he did was he set up distributors in Europe and around the country, classic rock, singer-songwriter songs. Disco was becoming popular at the time, 1970. Disco! A lot of people fought against disco, as I recall. It was, what do you think, Lori? Were you a fan of disco?
Oh, yeah. And, well, what do they say? Disco will never die. So, yeah. Yeah, it's fun.
But all kinds of music.
Well, you know, Don and I took a trip to Europe because he wanted to go through whoever it was, gosh, I don't remember now, but we were buying from somebody down there, so he knew that some of the things down there they couldn't advertise, they didn't have enough of them, and so he could just go through and he pulled all this stuff and had it shipped, and that was the reason we went there, because the vinyl was better. They had all kinds of different things, sometimes different cuts on the album. So we eventually opened up Intergalactic Trading Company, run by our good friend Archie Patterson. And then we started shipping all over the world. And so that was a big part of us getting bigger, you know.
How old were you? Lori, were you a kid when in 1969? And
I was.
did you help at the store? Did
Well,
you? What did you think of it? Or did you think
it was
it's a
very interesting.
crazy idea my
And-
parents have?
and it felt very, and even the corner location felt very counterculture, had a real funky vibe, and I always really liked that. But what I do remember is that my sister and I, we got to pick out an album, or on the first day, one of the day they opened, we each got to pick out an album, and
What, do you remember what you picked out?
No, that's the
Well,
funny
one of
thing.
them-
What could you remember? I
Yellow
don't.
Submarine, that was one of them.
Yellow Submarine.
Yeah,
Yellow
but
Submarine,
nobody remembers
We
what
can't
the
remember
other one-
who got
yeah.
what, and of course, so I guess there's one that we remember, and and actually I worked there later on, so that was fun, and but yeah, I'll never forget at every time the smell of incense so permeated the store there, and at the time there it was very popular, and there were just racks of incense, and of course. I don't think it's that way as much now, but I
think
still.
incense is still being sold.
Yeah, but it doesn't.
it doesn't permeate the whole
it doesn't
space.
permeate the whole space. But whenever I smell incense, I always think of Music Millennium.
What a great memory!
So
I like that memory. That's wonderful because it was that era.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone
Definitely.
was smoking and doing all those naughty things.
right.
I won't ask you about that. But anyway, Don MacLeod. I feel like he was a visionary. You and he were visionaries. That you had this conversation about let's open up a record store. Why not? Yeah, and here you have Music Millennium 50 years later. I think that Don would be very pleased to see how the store has flourished under Terry Courier's vision. I know that there was a lengthy kind of a little buyout that was happening where he would give Terry a certain percentage of the store, and so kind of taking that journey. It's very wonderful. A community, a place to hang. It's a place to come, and then Terry, was it Terry who thought up the thing about having live sessions upstairs? Or was that
We
Don?
used to, well, actually, when we first opened, we used to have people come and play or do poetry. We would do that on Saturday nights in the smaller, where the classical store is now. Upstairs used to be the upper, actually, when we had it, and that was the little store that you worked in, wasn't it?
I did.
It was
Yeah.
called the Upper?
The upper. We had all jewelry, bath stuff. We had clothing. It was just a fun little store, and I ran that.
Kind of like a totally 60s kind of a place,
Oh,
it sounds like.
earrings and
Oh, yeah,
kinds
all
of
that
things, fun
stuff.
things.
Incense.
Incense
Yeah.
was downstairs.
Incense was everywhere.
Incense was-
No, yeah, probably no incense
Yeah.
up there.
When you look at Music Millennium now, Laureen and Lori, what are your thoughts?
Well, I'm certainly glad that Terry kept it going because Don moved on to other things. And Terry was the right man to take over, really.
That's become his whole life.
It is.
He's cultivated up. My favorite spot in the store right now is his office, Terry's office.
Oh, really? Can you get in the door?
That's one of my favorite spots. It never changes. It just seems like it gets bigger and better than ever
Yeah.
with stuff. It's really something else.
Yeah.
So, were you around for the 50th anniversary?
Oh, yes.
I mean, did you come and celebrate? Help celebrate? Yeah.
I did.
Yeah.
I did as well.
Yes, Lori was there. and
It's
yeah.
it's really a legacy. He's a visionary. Don MacLeod, you're a visionary, and he's left Portland a wonderful legacy. So it's wonderful to have him be inducted into the Oregon Music Hall of Fame. Does that put like a fine point on it for you too, Lorene and Lori, when you heard that he was going to be inducted?
Well, I was very happy. Yes.
Yeah, I was very proud. So, yeah, he's been gone, quite a few years, but it's really nice to have his memory carried on.
Yeah, he's left. It's definitely a legacy that he's left. His memory will be, as they say, eternal.
Mm-hmm.
Congratulations on a beautiful project that started in your living room as a
Well,
thought.
actually, I used to order records from my kitchen in the beginning.
So maybe the kitchen was where you cooked it up.
Yeah.
I'm glad that you both did. Don MacLeod.
Thank you.
Nice to meet you, Lorene and Lori.
Thank you
Thank you
so
for having
much.
us.